Well, good morning and welcome to Buckeye Breakdown. It's a huge weekend for the Ohio State Buckeyes. They've got one of their primetime showcase games of 2021. The Penn State Nittany Lions coming to town. For many people, this game lost a little bit of luster because of what's happened with Penn State the last couple weeks. The Buckeyes are steadfast in saying that's not the case for them. They are taking Penn State very seriously as though they're still quality of the number 4 team in the country that they were just a couple weeks ago. We've got preview and prediction all morning long. Lots of stuff on the website. We're going to get you started on a great Friday morning right here, Buckeye Breakdown. Thanks for joining us. We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown. Welcome back. I appreciate you having us on your Friday morning docket. We're looking forward to talking about Buckeye and Nittany Lion football here this morning. I'm Brendan Gulick, along with our coach, Tommy Zagorski, who is fired up and ready to go on a Friday morning against, I guess this is Penn State Eve. And, I get the impression this is going to be a pretty fun game in your mind.
Absolutely. You're talking about a team that, really comes into this game licking their wounds after a 9 overtime loss to a team they were heavily favored over. But let's not forget who this Penn State team is to date. They beat a really good Auburn team at home, at night, national TV, got up for that game. They got excited for it. They beat a Wisconsin team at the beginning of the year that was nationally ranked that we found out down the road, and anyone that's been listening to this podcast for longer than 30 seconds knows our feelings about the Wisconsin Badgers, have not played really, really well. Lose to Iowa at Iowa in a historic game for the Hawkeyes that really kind of took the steam out of their season, following them next week where they lost to a very, very average Boilermaker team that we'll talk about later down the road, and has battled a lot of injuries, trying to discover their identity, especially at the quarterback spot. And I think really the guy that's really hurt Penn State with his absence right now is their defensive tackle, P.J. Mustipher. With him out right now, it's been a really difficult way for Penn State to kind of find their way. I know there's a lot of chatter about who's going to start up front of the defensive line. They give up 300-plus yards, 347, I believe, to that tune, to the Illinois Fighting Illini, who their third string and fourth string, respectively, on their depth chart are Brendan Gulick and Tommy Zagorski. So it's an interesting dynamic to see what's going to happen going forward for them. I really think you're going to see a team that's going to come in hungry. They know they're the underdog. They're going into this game. James Franklin plays this card really well with his program. He does a phenomenal job of telling them that they didn't want you. You're not good enough for them. And he's going to play that card up with them this entire week, as they're going through this. And he's going to ask Jayshon Dotson to step up. He's going to tell Sean Clifford, you grew up in this state. You played quarterback at one of the most storied programs in that state's history at St. X, and they didn't talk to you. They didn't want you. They went and took somebody else. And they're going to play this card up. They're going to come into this game. They're going to be hooting and hollering, ready to go. The Scarlet Out is going to be special, as I know we alluded to it off the air before this, Brendan. And it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be an interesting game to see where Ohio State's at. The reason I'm so juiced up is because the Lord woke me up this morning. Because I watch Ohio State, and it doesn't matter what's going on with these two teams, where they're at. This is going to be something really, really special to watch tomorrow evening on national television.
I'm looking forward to seeing how Ohio State comes out, because I think this Buckeye team has, the last several weeks in particular, you can tell their focus literally right from the get-go. I mean, right away, they have found ways to just jump all over people. I think Penn State's defense is going to pose a challenge unlike what Ohio State has seen in these last few weeks. But I also firmly expect the Buckeyes to come out and especially because of Mustipher's absence, I think they're going to try to run the ball downhill. I think they believe that CJ Stroud can do his thing, but I get the impression they're going to try to give the ball to TreVeyon Henderson pretty early on and see what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to put a lot on him. Penn State defensively is one of the better pass defenses in the country. Right now, I think they're number 3 in the Big Ten when it comes to defending the pass. Obviously, they took a huge hit in the run game last week, as we alluded in the opener, with the Illini getting in 12-13 heavy, which I've alluded to earlier in the year. That's what Minnesota did to Ohio State at the beginning of the year with multiple offensive linemen. It was kind of like Brett Bielema was like, hey, let's get out. Let's play Wisconsin football. Illinois football. But from that standpoint. But what you're going to see is really, can CJ Stroud and this elite pass receiving core attack this young, the secondary. Joey Porter Jr. Was a highly recruited kid out of North Allegheny. That's come to kind of in fruition for Penn State's defense. Daquan Hardy, another Pittsburgh kid, who's going to probably see a lot more action against the Buckeyes. They're going to probably try to move him around. He's a slot corner. Probably see him matched up with Jackson Smith and Jigba a lot on Saturday. And Ryan Day does a great job of moving these receivers around. You're going to see Jackson Smith and Jigba outside. You're going to probably see Jeremy Ruckert lined up at the X position, quote unquote, wherever he's at as 1 or 2 or 3 in the receiver core. They're going to move Garrett Wilson around. Chris Olave, they got to figure out ways to get him the ball early and often. He's kind of been quiet the last couple of weeks, and it's not a knock on Chris Olave. It's not a knock on the Ohio State offense. They just haven't needed Chris Olave, which is insane to think. Like, this generational receiver who's phenomenal is getting 3 or 4 touches just because defensively people are going to lock in on him. And, it's funny. I was looking the other day at the Big Ten stats, and, Garrett Wilson, I would not have guessed this off the cuff that Garrett Wilson actually has had a more productive statistic season for the Buckeyes to date. But CJ Stroud, this is his baptismal manifestation, was like a couple weeks ago. This is more in the Catholic Church's confirmation. Is he a man? Is he ready to become an adult for the Ohio State Buckeyes as we're getting into this? So I know, Brendan, you're laughing. There's a couple people listening that are like, oh, okay, like, good job with the Catholic Church. But really, is he the man that we think going forward that he could be? Efficiency-wise, he's off the charts. He's tied for most yards in the conference right now, with Tagovailoa, who we talked about a million times a minute ago. But really, he's going to have a lot of opportunities this weekend. And I think that Ryan Day going into this game is going to say, hey, I need to decide how balanced I can be, because you saw the Fool's Gold last week. You saw the run. You see TreVeyon Henderson, Mayan Williams, potentially a healthy Master T. As you're going through this great receiver, this great running back core behind probably one of the better offensive lines Ohio State's had in recent decades. Then you add into the equation these incredible receivers. Offensively speaking, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be defensively how Matt Barnes and the defense really line up and try to attack this from that standpoint.
I think one of the things that enables our show to be a little bit different than some of the other previews and podcast shows is that we can talk, more X's and O's because of your background as a college football coach for more than a dozen years. So rather than sit here and talks exclusively about kind of the hype around the game and why Ohio State's offenses look so good, can you give us an idea, if you're Penn State and you're trying to figure out how do we stop this Buckeye offense that has so many different weapons, that's beaten teams in different ways all year long, with a redshirt freshman quarterback that doesn't play like a redshirt freshman, with a huge offensive line and, great balance between what they're doing running and throwing the ball. Can you give us an idea of how the Buckeyes are probably going to go out there and look at this Penn State defense? What are they going to be presented with that could make life difficult for them?
Right out of the gate, like I said, the secondary. They have a very good secondary. It's a good group of athletes that they've played well. They've recruited well back there. Like I said, I alluded to Daquan Hardy, the kid out of Penn Hills, who's an undersized guy, but is fast. He's elusive. He's going to be able to come in and probably be a matchup guy if they decide that Ohio State's going to throw the football a lot. Here's the problem defending Ohio State right now as Penn State. You're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't. You could try to snack the box and stop the run with TreVeyon Henderson and with the rest of the Buckeye, Mayan Williams, Master T, whoever it may be that's in the backfield this weekend, throughout, depending on the series. But here's the problem. You don't have the guys up front to actively defend the run and sit in there against this massive Ohio State offensive line. Brendan, you've had the pleasure of seeing these guys up close. I've had the pleasure of meeting some of these guys and even recruiting some of them up close. These are massive human beings. And Penn State is kind of reeling right now. When, like I said in the opener, PJ Mustipher was like their guy. He was the guy. He was their Gerald McCoy of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's the guy that makes their defense go. Well, right now, they're kind of trying to hunt to see who it is. They've got a transfer from Duke on the defensive line, a transfer from Temple. These are guys that they're trying to get into the mix to try to get these guys to play. I mean, even last week, one of their defensive ends, I want to make sure I can say his name right, Jesse Luketa. Jesse Luketa. Jesse Luketa is a kid who played defensive end at the beginning of the year. He's a little bit undersized. He played Mike linebacker last week because they started running the ball. Here's the problem. If you move Luketa back to linebacker right now, Ryan Day's got 8,000 eyes in the box. He's going to sit there, and Kevin Wilson's going to be like, Luketa is playing linebacker. Matchup issues. Hello. And Ohio State runs a ton of the different air raid stuff with the mesh and everything else, where they're going to run rub routes and make these linebackers try to cover these incredible wide receivers. And what's going to happen is you're going to see that probably going forward. And Ohio State does a good job. I call it video game calls. And when I say video game calls, it's like you'll see Ohio State come up to the line. Look, check to the sideline, up in the box. What's going on? Boom, send the play in and go attack it. And Penn State's going to do a good job because defenses will disguise it one way or the other and try to be on it. Like last week, like I said, Illinois just grinded them. Just grind them. I think Ohio State's too powerful offensively in the throw game to just line up and say, hey, we're just going to punch you in the face play after play. But who knows? Ryan Day may have woke up on Tuesday and said, you know what? I'm so sick of looking at Penn State and seeing James Franklin talk about all this fake stuff that's going on in the real world. I may just want to do that. So that's where you look at this defense. They don't have enough guys in the box to go attack that. The guy that I really think is their best player is Ellis Burks. Ellis Burks jumped off the screen early in the year, not to be confused with former fifth bat DH for the Cleveland Indians, but he is definitely one of the better players in defense, in the conference. And I remember you and I talked, Brendan, after watching that Wisconsin game at the beginning of the year. I go, man, this 13 kid's pretty good. He goes sideline to sideline. He makes plays. He's undersized, though. If you run at him, And that's where you're going to really see is that when you see Paris Johnson and Thayer Munford, and the rest of the offensive line climbing up onto people the rest of this, afternoon. And really, I say this afternoon, tomorrow night. I'm so excited. I want this game to start. But no, as you see it, to have that opportunity to see these guys continue to go, it's going to be an interesting aspect from that. The other part of it is also Ohio State does a phenomenal job in the RPO game. And Ryan Day knows this. And one of the things that you're going to see when we talk about the Penn State offense is Penn State's going to live on that. And really, Mike Yurkovich, who's an Ohio native, who's the offensive coordinator, for Penn State, he's kind of like Ryan Day light. And I hope that he's not listening to this because he's going to take offense to that. But really, that's who he is. They try to do a lot of the stuff Ohio State does. They try to be good in the RPO game. They've got some really talented wide receivers. It'll be interesting to see kind of how they attack from that standpoint. But I say all that in this long-winded response to that, Brendan. Coaching staff sit down on Monday. When they sit down on Monday to get ready for the game week, the offense meets, the defense meets, the special teams meet. And majority of the programs will have some way that they're going to tell their kids how they have to win this game. It might be the big three. It might be the point of emphasis on offense, defense, special teams. Maybe each unit has their own three, whatever it may be. And they got to have to play together. And I know this is what's going to happen. James Franklin's going to say that the equation to beat this team, they saw it with Oregon. You have to jump out early. You have to make this team play catch up for a long period of time, multiple scores, and jump up, quiet the crowd, and go from that standpoint. Does Penn State have the arsenal to do that? In my humble opinion, I don't think so. Do they have the chance of doing that? Potentially. They could jump out early. Jayshon Dotson is an elite player, but I know the Ohio State secondary is going to got a little bit of chatter saying, yeah, okay. You know who we have to cover in practice every day? Do you know when we go good on good, who we're covering, we're going to worry about this guy? Come on. This guy would be transferring out to an SEC school right now. He'd be transferred to Penn State if he was on our roster. So, as you look at it, it's going to be a fun game, a lot of banter back and forth. But, really from a schematic standpoint, I think Penn State's defense is going to have to say, we can't give up 347 yards rushing to TreVeyon Henderson, to Mayan Williams, and to Master Teague. And everyone in America has given up 1 million passing yards to Ohio State as well. But in the great words of Woody Hayes, when you throw the football, two things can happen poorly, opposed to just one. So I think they're going to try to stop the run early. And from that standpoint, they're going to let CJ Stroud kind of go win this game. If they will. They're going to blitz a lot. There's going to be a lot of exotic looks just because up front they're not going to get home. They don't do a great job of pressuring the quarterback. They're in the lower third of the conference when it comes to that. But you're going to see them be exotic in their blitz packages. Kind of what Matt Barnes did when he took over this defense, where he started blitzing the linebackers a lot, A-gap, B-gap stunts, trying to move the defensive line around. You're going to see a lot of that shifting back and forth with that standpoint. And sorry, Brandon, I went for like 10 minutes on that, but no, really, I think that's what you're going to see.
That's why you're here.
No, I appreciate it. No, I think this is what you're going to see going forward, for this team and for this program. And it's really the only way Penn State's going to be able to hang. They're going to have to hit some home runs. It's the same thing, whenever you go play a team that's like that much better than you. And realistically, the coaching staff's not going to tell their kids that, but they know that. They're going to watch film. These guys are really smart. They make a lot of money doing this. They're going to say, we got to hit a couple home runs early. And it's not one of these games where like, hey, we're talented enough that we can just hang with this team, and then go for our shot. Like, you got to come out of the gate and hit a couple like Oregon did. And what it did was it put Ohio State back up, a lot of question marks. Even the fans, like our great fans, which are the best fans in the country, even kind of turn their back a little bit on this team. And that's what you're going to try to fight. You're going to try to play that. You're going to try to get that going early. But I think Ohio Stadium on Saturday night is going to be rocking. This place is going to be ready to go. And you're really going to see CJ Stroud. I mean, the hair on the back of my neck right now standing up. Like, I know you can't feel that right now, but like, I'm like so excited to see him take this next step as a quarterback and really push this Ohio State offense into, really the annals of history.
First of all, thank you for such an in-depth answer, and don't apologize for going long. There's no time limit here. You can do whatever you want. I think after reflecting on Indiana a little bit last week, if Jack Tuttle doesn't get hurt at the end of the first drive and essentially has to – I know he came back very briefly. He basically missed the rest of the game. I think Indiana would have played a more competitive final score against Ohio State, because if it's just this simple, I don't think they would have given the ball back to the Buckeyes so fast. Part of the reason why Ohio State threw up 50 against Indiana was because they literally could not pick up first downs on offense. And so Ohio State possessed the ball a lot longer than I'm sure Indiana wanted them to. I think Penn State is going to try to take a little bit more of a Minnesota type page out of the playbook when they've got the ball. Minnesota outpossessed the Buckeyes 42 minutes to 18. And even if you don't always come up with points, and that hurts when you don't, but even if you don't, I think you can keep the game a lot more competitive against Ohio State if you control the clock better. Oregon did that to an extent. They just didn't do it the same way, Minnesota did. Oregon beat the Buckeyes in a different way. They just dinked and dunked their way down the field, and Anthony Brown played the game of his life. I would expect that Ohio State's home run capability is still going to be there when they've got the ball on offense. But I almost think that part of Penn State's plan has to be to try to make this game slow down for Ohio State's offense a little bit, because I don't think they can win a track meet. Jahan Dotson's the real deal. He's an All-American caliber wide receiver. He's very, very good. I don't know if Sean Clifford's healthy. I mean, look, I know what they're saying. What are they going to say? No, hey, we're limping into this game. Actually, our quarterback who's from Cincinnati, he's not 100%, and we're going to go play on the road and see what happens. Like, they're not going to say that.
Brendan, if they went to the Dan Mullen school of talking to the media, that probably would be what they would open up with, is that we're just not, we're not there. Then after the game, he would blame it on injuries because he's the greatest coach ever invented. But anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I am skeptical at how healthy he is. And I don't think that Penn State has a chance to beat Ohio State without a fully 100% healthy Sean Clifford, because if he comes off the field, I don't mean this in a rude way. You saw what came in after Clifford got hurt against Iowa. And Penn State looked like the better team against Iowa in the beginning of that game. And when Clifford came out, they got steamrolled. They played really poorly offensively. Is that absolutely going to be the case on Saturday? I don't know. Both sides. I mean, you make adjustments as the game goes along. Like I get all that, but I'm just not a big believer in Penn State's offense. And while I know Ohio State's defense has certainly had, a few cracks along the way that they've tried to clean up, Ohio State also hasn't given up a rushing touchdown in 5 weeks, and again, have they played the caliber offensive line and running back the last 5 games that they saw the first 2? Probably not. I would expect that they're going to see a much better offensive line and running attack from Penn State, but I don't know. This Penn State team to me, and look, man, I'll admit it. Maybe I'm getting sucked into it a little bit. I don't know how you can give up 350 rushing yards to an Illinois team that has been absolutely, bar none, without question, one of the 2 worst programs in Big Ten football over the last 5, 6, 10 years. How can you convince somebody that you're ready to go win the biggest game on your schedule coming off of that? I mean, is it possible? Yeah, it's possible that Penn State could win. I think it is extremely more likely that Ohio State blows them out than loses.
No, I'm with you 1,000%, Brendan, and that's where I'm really excited about this game. And then, one of the things you did mention about the quarterback position with Sean Clifford is one of the things about that Iowa game I think people forget. Sean Clifford threw 2 picks in that game. So did Taquan Robertson. I mean, they both did. Statistically speaking, Robertson had a lot less reps than Clifford did at the beginning of the game. But realistically, talk about being opportunistic. Iowa turns the ball over on their own 7-yard line or 6 yard, either their own 8-yard line. They're backed up. They throw that pick. And then they come back and Penn State musters a field goal out of it. And one of the things that I think when you talk about controlling the clock, teams that control the clock, that it's really hard. It's really, really hard to run the football when you don't have faith in the guys up front. And this is where, I don't place a lot of stock in Pro Football Focus. I know we joke about that a lot. They do a phenomenal job. I'm not knocking what they do. Their in-depth coverage is through the roof on grades of these guys. But the Penn State offensive line, I believe, according to their standard, is the worst run blocking offensive line in the Big Ten. It's a big group, and they're trying to find out who the right guy is. Between Mike Miranda and Juice Scuggs, they're trying, which is a phenomenal name to have your first name be Juice. It's just an outstanding name. But Mike Miranda is another Ohio kid, went to Stowe High School in Northeast Ohio. Got recruited by Ohio State late, but was committed to Penn State, stayed with Penn State. Good football player. He's been bouncing back and forth between center and guard. He and Juice have been, between the two of them. They're trying to find the right elixir to run the football right now. And really at the running back position, Noah Cain's been kind of their guy. He's averaging 35 yards a game. It's not like he's some kind of, it's not the era of, some of the Kijana Carters of, that they've had in the past and great running backs, Saquon Barkley. I mean, Penn State has had a tradition of incredible running backs, and this is probably one of the worst groups that they've had in recent memory. To have that, and then the Lee kid, Kayvon Lee, got hurt at the game last week. Don't know if you're going to see him play. And really, those are the 2 running backs they've used exclusively this season. So you're looking at it it's great in principle to say we're going to slow the game down, we're going to run the football, we're going to punch through this. But right now, you sit there and you look at it. You walk into the offensive line room. You look at your offensive line and you go, I don't know if we've got that kind of mindset to be able to push these guys around. Probably week 1, week 2, the way the defensive line was playing. Maybe. But like I said, Larry Johnson, he went back to the Instant Pot. He's been mixing it up. He's finally got the buffalo chicken dip just right. He's got the right amount of creaminess, the right amount of spice. He's delivering it up every Saturday the right way right now. And that elixir that they have, they're going to continue to do that right now as they go to do this. I just don't see – I think in principle that's what you want to do. I just don't think you sit there, though, because if you run the football And you think about this Penn State team's not like a great running team. They're not going to come out of this and be ready to knock it out. And Sean Clifford, they're going to do some, maybe run him a little bit. But the other thing is, like, do you really want to get him in the read option game as well? He's a good athlete, but you're exposing him to hits that he doesn't need to take early. And now you're sitting back and you go, wait a second, we're back to square one at quarterback as well. So it's really it's a tough situation. I'm sounding very negative if I were like a Penn State person or a Penn State coach right now, going like, well, we'd like to do this, but we don't have this. We don't have that. I mean, this morning I would have loved to have woke up in a new Bugatti, but I didn't. I don't have the means to do that, to reference the urban poet, if you will. But I say this now. It's really important that they try to run the football. But I think if I'm James Franklin, I'm going into the offensive staff meeting earlier this week, and I say I want big plays. I want big hits. I want to calm their crowd down, because realistically, we could slow the clock down. But Ohio State doesn't care. Ohio State scores in 2-3 plays. It's not like it's not like they're gonna flip the page and then they're gonna go ground and pound this thing out. Ryan Day is scoring 1 million. I mean, literally. I mean, they're averaging like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's like 49 plus per game.
49 plus a game. 48 plus a game. And spoiler alert. For those of you that are sticking around to the end of this, you're hovering right around where where I think how many points the Buckeyes will score in this game, but. I say that because it's important that you see, you have to score early to at least make them play catch up a little bit. Maybe put a little angst on them. Maybe put a little bit of pressure on them, because realistically, you slow the clock down, you get down. You're the 12th rated red zone offense in the country, in the Big Ten, which is not a great stat to have. 14 teams, you're 12th. Not great.
And look at their ability.
Field goals.
Look at their inability to punch it in all those extra overtimes last week. Like, I don't even care how late it was, or if you thought it was gimmicky. They had chances repeatedly over and over and over to get in the end zone from a couple yards out and couldn't.
And if Illinois could catch the football, like I think Brett Bielema probably bought a jugs machine this week. There, like, if they can catch football, like, that overtime ends like way earlier. I mean, it's like, it's remarkable. I mean, you start with the trick play to Clifford, which was a great call. I mean, an awesome call, and like, the throw wasn't there. You're having a quarterback like reach out to try to get the ball, like, But I mean, they walk in, they probably win that game, and we're sitting here going, all right, 6-1. Penn State walks into Ohio State right now after a scare in Happy Valley. But right now, unfortunately, like you said, you get the ball. In that situation, you're Penn State, you have this culture of great offensive linemen, great running backs over the history of it. And of those 9 attempts, Brendan, you only got in once. Like got to be able to line up and run the football. And I hope I'm not eating crow. I hope we're not sitting back here on Sunday morning and they're coming back and it's like, and the Penn State Nittany Lions rushed for 325 yards. And, Matt Barnes' head's going to explode. Now Al Washington's the coordinator, or whatever it would be, But
one of the guys I think that's one of the guys that's that I think has been.
While you're talking, I don't want to run Taco Nation. I agree with you 1,000%. We're finally seeing who Zach Harrison is. Like, this is what this. I mean, last week. I mean, like, on the sideline, you saw the Indiana guys just like look at him like this. I mean, if anyone's ever met Zach Harrison in person, he's a tremendous human being. But he is one of the when God sculpted him, he's like in the top 10 percentile of human beings he's ever created. And then you add the Mariotti effect into it. Like, it's been interesting to see him develop. I'm really excited to see, him play this weekend. So sorry, Brendan.
Yeah, no, I was going to bring him up. I mean, I agree. I think that Zach Harrison's evolution throughout the course of the season, and I think we always kind of knew and hoped what we would see from him. Certainly heard a ton about him in the offseason, but there's an element of, it was kind of a slow start for him and what he's been able to do these last, few weeks. And then, in my opinion, he played his best game of the season last week. Him being a legitimate dominant force at defensive end, I think makes this defensive line a lot better. We've talked a lot about Haskell Garrett, which is, I think, well-earned praise. We've certainly given credit to Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. Jack Sawyer's drawn more holding, not non-holding and holding flags than I've ever seen. I mean, the number of times he gets held and there's no penalty thrown, is mind-boggling to me. But he's also drawn a lot of holding calls. And I think JT's played really well so far this year as a true freshman. But I think the Buckeyes need that veteran presence at defensive end, and Zach Harrison has certainly stepped up here in these last few weeks. All right, before we hit on a couple of the other Big Ten games that are huge and really impactful this weekend, time for your prediction. What do you got?
Wow, Brendan, I foreshadowed it a little bit earlier. I'm going to say the Buckeyes do not kick a field goal in this one. I'm going to say Ohio State 49. Ohio State 49. I'm going to go the Nittany Lions 20. 49-20 is going to be your final score, and I don't know if it's going to feel that close.
We didn't talk about this ahead of time. I'm picking 49-21.
Oh!
almost to a T. I don't think Penn State's going to kick a field goal either, because I think they probably realize they're not going to win this game kicking field goals. Maybe they'll kick one in the middle of the game if they've gotten a couple of early stops. I just don't think that's going to happen. I expect Ohio State's offense to have a great day, and I think people are going to start looking around the country and say, okay, all right, maybe this Ohio State offense is for real. I mean, they are executing at a level right now at which we haven't seen a whole lot of in college football. And we've written about this earlier this week. Ohio State's offense, this is not hyperbole, right? This is not overstatement. Through this part of the season, Ohio State's offense is outpacing the vaunted 2020 Alabama offense that won the national title and Joe Burrow's led 2019 LSU offense that won the national title 2 years ago. And they did it with Joe Burrow and Mac Jones, who were veteran quarterbacks. And Ohio State's doing it with CJ Stroud, who's played 6 games. It's ridiculous. He's making throws that I'm telling you, if you're really watching and really paying attention, he's playing at an extremely high level since he came back from that injury. And I don't know what kind of magic potion they rubbed on his shoulder when he didn't play against Akron, but all of the frustrations and the overthrows or the misreads that he occasionally had in those first 3 games, it wasn't terrible, right? He wasn't playing awful, but he wasn't sharp those first few games. Was it, hey, I haven't played football in 2 years, basically, or just being a freshman or playing against a couple of good teams? Like, there's probably combinations of all of it. But my gosh, has he looked good these last 3, let's think about it now, 4 weeks, right? 4 Big Ten games. And I'm just really, really impressed. No, I guess it's 3. Yeah, he sat out against Akron, so it'd be Rutgers, Maryland, Indiana. There we go. Got it. I got it all straight. I really, really think CJ Stroud is playing at a level right now that is unmatched anywhere else in the country. He hasn't turned it over, knock on wood, hasn't turned it over since he came back. He's thrown for over 1,000 yards in those 3 games. In Ohio State's last 156 plays, they've scored 150 points. That is absolutely unbelievable in every sense of the word. I just have a hard time seeing Penn State's defense slowing down Ohio State because of their big play nature. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think this is going to be a big day for the Buckeyes, and I'm with you. I hope we don't wake up Sunday morning feeling like we're eating crow on that. But I think a 49-21 final. I mean, look at I say look at the line. I know you didn't look at the line because you never look at the line. Do you have any idea what it is? I'll tell you if you don't know.
I honestly have no idea. I'm sorry.
It's almost 3 touchdowns. 18.5. And I mean, to me, that's like that's probably about right. And yet it still hits you like, really? Ohio State, Penn State, 18.5? I'm telling you, the Buckeyes are that good.
Brennan, I mean, you and I have talked about this. I don't look at those lines, but those guys' pencils are really sharp. Those guys that make those lines in Vegas, like, they do a pretty good job of understanding who they're going to play and things of that nature. The one thing about CJ Stroud, and I know we got to get to Big Ten play here, is like one of the things about CJ Stroud, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's a lot of Buckeyes that have endorsement deals right now. A lot of guys are signing up for different things, Harry Miller is donating his money to people in, El Salvador, Ecuador, whatever it was. That's phenomenal. God bless him. What an incredible gift of humility to be able to do that. I haven't read a lot of writing about CJ Stroud's got this endorsement deal or that endorsement deal or whatever endorsement deal it is. I'm not knocking these young men for capitalizing on their likeness and image. I love
No,
it.
not at all.
Likeness,
He's pretty humble about it.
God bless him. But CJ Stroud is spending time, Brendan, preparing for Saturday. Imagine this novel concept. He's walking into the facility. I would love to be CJ Stroud's Snapchat fan or friend. I don't think he probably spends a lot of time like, yo, like on the snap, bro. Like, oh, we got this game. Maybe after the game he lets his hair down a little bit. But realistically, he's spending every waking moment that he has an opportunity to receive an incredible education at The Ohio State University. And then the education that he's getting as a football player. The reason he's not throwing interceptions right now, the reason he looks so polished and so prepared, it's the amount of time he's investing into his craft. I know that Ryan Day and Corey Dennis are telling him this every single day, as well as Kevin Wilson, how to be the best possible quarterback he can be. I just kudos to him for investing in the right thing. And I think Ohio State fans should appreciate that a little bit more. I'm sure he could go sit at Raising Cane's and sign autographs for a couple hours a week and do stuff like that and make more pocket money. But what he's more concerned about is his legacy at Ohio State and his legacy of no one's going to look back and say, man, you had a $2 million contract as a freshman for some tech company or whatever. Like, awesome, dude. Like, no, what they're going to look back at is like, what did you do on Saturdays for us? So, kudos to CJ Stroud. Continue to do that, young man. You're doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah, he is. He's a pretty impressive kid. That's for sure. All right. I know we're going to wrap up by the top of the hour, so let's talk a little bit about at least two of these other games around the conference this weekend. I don't think we need to spend too much time on Indiana, Maryland, although frankly, I think that could be that could be a good game. The Minnesota Northwestern game, I'm not sure people are going to sit here and go, wait a second, you guys didn't talk about the Wildcats and the Gophers or Rutgers at Illinois.
Minnesota sitting at the top, man. Let's go.
There's going to be a lot of people, I'm sure, watching Rutgers at Illinois. The two biggest games in the conference this week are very clearly in Columbus and in East Lansing. And then you can make an argument there's another pretty darn good football game in Madison between Iowa and Wisconsin. We'll talk about that one second because I think the biggest game in the country this week, even with Ohio State hosting Penn State, I think the bigger game is Michigan at Michigan State. Can Jim Harbaugh finally beat a top 10 team on the road? And now a program who, all of a sudden he is far more interested in the rivalry with Michigan State than he is with Ohio State. Not saying that they're not rivals between Michigan and Michigan State. They are, and they've got a great history. And there's a lot of fun storylines in this game. Both teams are 7-0 for the first time since Kingdom Come, right? We're playing against each other. Like, it's going to be a great game, but I don't know, man. There's a part of this to me that certainly feels like a potential Rose Bowl elimination game. I am a little bit skeptical of Michigan going on the road to Michigan State. I think Michigan is certainly capable of winning the game, but I think Kenneth Walker is probably the neutralizing factor. He's the nation's leading rusher right now. I expect that to be a really good game. I think Sparty wins a tight one.
Yeah, and that's the earlier in the week, Brendan. I said that. I felt that way. Michigan is the number one defense in the conference right now. They're playing really good football. They're attacking at an alarming rate. They're doing a really nice job. However, Kenneth Walker's running the football really, really well. Michigan State's got College Game Day on campus. They've got Big Ten, the Big Ten's kickoff on campus. I mean, they've got all this stuff on campus this weekend. It's going to be an exciting weekend in East Lansing. It's interesting you said about the home team. Traditionally, the visitor plays better than the home team in this rivalry. But I'm going to take Sparty. Mel Tucker needs this win because he's talked about it in every opening job in America right now. And I think going forward, I think you're going to see Michigan State win a really close one And now Michigan, maybe the Jim Harbaugh ball begins to unravel just a little bit. But I'll take Sparty very, very close.
Yeah, me too. And that's not to say Michigan can't win the game. They are very capable of going up there and winning. But I guess I just see this playing out in Sparty's favor for the second year in a row. I think things are going to get a little interesting in Ann Arbor. Even with just one loss, I think there's going to be a lot of people going, oh, boy, okay, here we go.
Here we go again.
How about in the West? You've got an Iowa team that I think it's fair to say they still are the favorites in the West despite losing to Purdue, but they certainly don't control their own destiny yet in the West Division. And one of the teams that does technically have the ability, if Wisconsin wins out, they're going to win the West. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's possible. And the reality is Iowa has kind of struggled the last 8 years against Wisconsin. They've only beaten them a couple times, including last year. I think this could be a really, really interesting, low-scoring, Big Ten slobber knocker kind of game.
I love that you say a low-scoring game. I literally was looking at this game and I earlier in the week, and I said there might be more runs scored in the World Series than there are points scored in the Wisconsin-Iowa game. I mean, legitimately, I don't like Wisconsin can't move the football on anybody that's decent defensively. Wisconsin's the best rush defense in the Big Ten. Iowa loves to run the football. The quarterback play has not been what it's been. I'll take the Hawkeyes 13, Wisconsin 3. Like I really just don't see this being an explosive game. Now that I said that, it'll probably end up being like 35, whatever. But I just think these two defensive teams, there's a lot of pride in both these groups, and they're going to do it that way. So you can see that going forward. But also in the West, Brendan, the one game we omitted that I think is a big game is Purdue-Nebraska. And the reason I say that is this. Nebraska's playing much better. Scott Frost is coaching for his livelihood. And everybody coaches for livelihood every week, but nobody gets talked about probably more than Scott Frost and Manny Diaz right now when it comes on the national spectrum of whether or not they're going to have a job next year. I heard somebody the other day say, Dave Clawson would be a great fit in Nebraska. Like to move, move Scott Frost out of the position. Trev Alberts has got a lot of work to do there, as a whole with that athletic department. But I think Nebraska, Scott Frost can guarantee himself another year in Lincoln if he can come away with a win here against Purdue.
I do think Iowa-Wisconsin's low scoring, but I think it's going to be a little bit more than 13-3. I am actually going to pick an upset in that game. I think Wisconsin's going to get them. 20-13 is my pick.
Wow.
Yeah, Wisconsin's rushing attack has been fine. Their passing attack's been borderline atrocious. I mean, let's call a spade here. They've been really, really poor. I think Wisconsin being at home and playing an Iowa team that still looks at Wisconsin, to me, I think they still look at Wisconsin as the Big Ten goes through Madison on the west side. For whatever reason, they've just kind of had trouble with the Badgers. Is Iowa a better football team? Absolutely. But I think they're going to struggle to move the ball on the ground against a Wisconsin defense that is very, very good. And I don't know if I really believe in Iowa offensively. I'm not sure I'm in on that. So I'm going to let you probably tell me more about the Nebraska-Purdue game. I'm not sure my attention will be there.
But I think Nebraska's playing better football. Purdue's coming off an interesting loss. Purdue was nationally ranked, a week ago. I really think that you have two great minds, offensive minds, in Brom and Frost, and they're going to go at it. And really, Scott Frost is coaching, for his life right now in his hometown. So, and I say my hometown because he went to college there. I really think that's an important game. I think there's a lot more into that game than people think. If Nebraska can come away with a win, it makes that game a little bit more enticing against the Buckeyes. Plus, it also gives you the ability to say he's going to be, the head coach going forward in Nebraska.
Looking forward to seeing how all these games play out. We'll have a ton to talk about on Sunday morning. Of course, it's a late night, Saturday night kickoff in Columbus. The Ohio State Buckeyes, the Penn State Nittany Lions, our preview and prediction podcast here on Buckeye Breakdown. Hope you've enjoyed it here this morning. We will see you tomorrow, Ohio State and Penn State, under the lights in a scarlet out at Ohio Stadium. See you then. We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All-Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.